Good afternoon, children. Welcome to the class today. So, today we are going to learn the chapter Organisms and Populations. Organisms and populations are fundamental concepts in biology that help describe the living things and their groups in nature. So, organism is in any individual living thing which can be a plant, animal, bacterium, fungus, or any other life forms. Now, moving to populations, populations refers to a group of organisms of the same species that live in a specific area at a particular time. So organism and population comes under the topic ecology. So ecology is a branch of science that studies the relationship between organisms and their physical and biological environment. And the levels of organization ecology consist of organism, and group of organism is population, and a group of population makes up the community, and group of community together with the abiotic factors make up the ecosystem, and finally it will form the biosphere. Okay, now what is an organism? So organisms form the basic unit of study in ecology. That is, as I mentioned, they are the living organism, the individual living thing. It could be plant, animal, bacterium, fungus, or any other life forms. For example, let's consider any particular animal. Let it be the lion. So this is an organism. Now, so what is species? So organisms with similar features and the potential. So they'll be having similar features and they have the potential to interbreed among themselves and produce fertile offspring constitute a species. Okay, so what are the characteristics of species? Species will be having similar features. They will be having similar characteristic features or phenotypes. And they have the potential to interbreed. They can interbreed each other. And they produce fertile offspring in the sense they will be producing a young one which can even continue the generation. That means they can produce another young one as well. So that is a species. Now considering lion as an organism, there are different species of lion. For example, we have Asian lion, we have African lion, that is Panthera leo persica, and we have Barbary lion, West African lion. So many species of lion we do have. Now moving to population. So population is a group of individuals of the same species inhabiting in a given area. So now we are considering Asian lions which are living in a particular habitat. They are living together in a particular area at a particular time. That is very important. So here time is the another important factor. So population will be population refers to a group of animals, group of individuals. Okay, group of individuals living together in a particular area, that means in a same habitat, and they will be living at the same time as well. Okay, now moving to next term, that is biological community. So biological community constituted by an assemblage of populations, that means group of populations. So here we were referring to the population of lion, where population refers to group of organisms, and here community is referring to a group of population. So as we mentioned, this is a population of lion, and in community it could be a group of population of lion plus a group of population of deer, a group of population of tiger, etc. That is a community, an assemblage of population of all different species that live in an area and interact with each other. So a biotic community has a distinct species composition and structure. Even the lion might be having different species, species 1 as well as species 2 together. Okay, moving to ecosystem. Ecosystem is a biological system in the nature and composed of biotic community integrated with its physical, that is abiotic environment through exchange of energy and recycling of the nutrients. So here we were discussing about only the organisms. Now they are interacting with the plants in the ecosystem. They will be interacting with the water present on the ground or in the river, in the stream, the air in the atmosphere, the light from the sun, the solar energy, the microorganisms, all the living organisms and the non-living factors like air, water, light, all these interacting each other makes up the ecosystem. So it is a biological system in the nature which is composed of a biotic community integrated with its physical, the abiotic environment through the exchange of energy and recycling of nutrients. So we know about the food chain, right? From the solar energy, the sun, the energy is transferred to plants. From plants, the energy is transferred to the primary level, primary consumers, then to secondary consumers, then to tertiary consumers. They do release waste also. Heat energy is also, heat energy is released as well as waste is also produced. They die and decompose into inorganic materials, like, sorry, they are decomposing by the decomposers or the bacteria, the microorganisms, and they release some nutrients as well, which increase the fertility of the soil, which increase the which carry out the cycling of the elements in earth. Okay, now moving to habitat. So habitat is the place where an organism lives. For example, lion lives in the forest. So that is its habitat. In which particular forest? That, for example, it is the it's whether it is in a I mean, like in what kind of climate is also peculiar important here. So here this is the habitat of the lion. Now comes the term biomes. So biomes is a very large unit. It constituting of major vegetation type and associate fauna found in a specialized sort. So here this is representing about a particular habitat, we could say, and it consists of major vegetation, what kind of plants, the flora, the plants which are present in that particular region, and also the associated fauna, the animals which are interacting with them at the particular zone. That is biomes. We'll be coming to this topic later in detail. Now niche. So you have to always keep in mind that habitat and niche are two different terms. You have to understand the exact difference of meaning in between these two terms. So the ecological niche of an organism represents the range of conditions that it can tolerate, the resources it utilizes, and its functional role in the ecological system. Each species occupies a distinct niche and no two species occupy the same niche. So we know that two species can live in a same habitat, A and B living together, whereas they can't occupy the same niche because considering a lion, so lion lives in a forest. It is correct, it is a habitat. Now in the forest, they will be consuming particular food. It is a diet will be different. They will be the prey of lion will be specific. They will be interacting with particular organism. They will be, I mean, like they will be like in the breeding between the particular species. So the resources they depend upon, the role they play. The lion will be having a particular role or capabilities different from the other animals. So they are occupying a different niche. Okay, that is what niche is. What and where an animal is and what is the role of that animal there and what all factors are he depending on that particular habitat. Now next comes the term biosphere. It is a sum total of all the biomes on the earth. So what is biosphere? It is a sum total of all the biomes on the earth. Actually, these are the biomes: desert, grassland, tropical forest, temperate forest, coniferous forest, the Arctic and alpine tundra are the different biomes. So all the biomes together make up the biosphere. Now coming to the last term, environment. So we are clear with the term, right? Environment, the sum total of all biotic, that is living, abiotic factors that surround and potentially influence an organism. Considering the lion as an organism, the biotic factors, the prey, the food they depend on, the mates, the organism that is breeding with the particular animal, the kids, the progeny, the kids that lion is going to have, the enemies, the competitors, the enemies or the competitors. Now they need water as well, so they have to interact with water. They need air. They need solar energy. So they need to transfer energy. They have to interact with the biotic as well as abiotic factors. So these factors together forms the environment. Temperature, water, light and soil are the major abiotic factors. Moving to next topic, that is the major one, biomes. So we already discussed the definition of biomes here. So biomes is a very large unit consisting of a major vegetation type and associate fauna found in a specialized zone. So here it is about the large ecosystem that is called the biome, and each biome is identified its climax community. Climax community in the sense at the end, or because of so many changes, because of the succession, at last which community is withstanding there for, like, which is surviving over that area for a longer period of time, that is a climax community. It could be any animals, plants or any kind of organisms, and that climax community constitute each biome. The altitude and latitude determine the boundary of biome. So here you can see it is very simple. Desert will be having different climate. The altitude, latitude is different from the Arctic and the Alpine tundra. They are exactly different. Isn't the temperature is very different? Here it is minus 10 degrees Celsius. Here it is around 20, between 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. So it is a mean annual temperature there. Now here the mean annual precipitation is also different. So here in tropical forest, you have more rainfall compared to the desert area and the Arctic area. So all the factors are different in biomes, different biomes. So the annual variations in the intensity and duration of temperature and precipitation are responsible for the formation of major biomes. Now, what makes each biome different? It is because of the duration of temperature. As you can see, as I mentioned right now, desert will be having more like they'll be having high temperature compared to the other areas, like not like every one, like coniferous areas and the Arctic regions will be having more like low temperature compared to the desert, grassland, tropical areas and all. Whereas coming to the precipitation, the desert and Arctic areas are having low precipitation or low late rainfalls, whereas a tropical forest, the temperate forest will be having much better rainfall. So that is what makes the biomes different. So tundra is located in the tundra region, and the most important vegetation present there is lichens, moss and grass. Not and grass, etc. Now the northern coniferous, the corns and pines and all, the south to tundra and just below the tundra. So as I mentioned, the pine, deodar, cypress, etc. Now coming to the temperate region, centrally located, I mean center region, and the plant vegetation present over there is the oak plants. Now oak trees, actually, the tropical deciduous, it is present in located on the plains, low hilly areas, and the vegetations include sal, teak, tentu. Tropical rainforest, it is present in the equatorial region, and the vegetation include hopi. The Mediterranean forest, it is located in the Pacific coast of America and Australia. They have the vegetation of small trees and shrubs. The tropical savanna, so it is present, we know, right, in South America and South Australia, they have core grasses as well as large trees. Now moving to grassland, it is located all over the areas, like different, usually in South America, South Australia, they do have the grassland areas. The cattle will be present over there. Then desert, it is present in Asia, that is, as we know, like the Sahara Desert and all, as well as North Africa. So different grasslands include the prairies, pampas, steppes, tassos, wells. So it is present in North America, South America, Europe and Asia, New Zealand as well as Africa. Now coming to the biotic and abiotic factors. So abiotic refers to the living factors and abiotic refers to the non-living factors. So the biotic factors include the pathogens, parasites, predators, and the competitors. The abiotic factors include the temperature, water, light, and soil. So we'll start with the abiotic factor, the temperature. So even humans depend upon the temperature, right? We need energy, the light, the heat energy from the sun. We can't like for example, we do have, the humans do have adaptation. So in polar regions, like most, like they're having a few number of organisms over there. The organisms are only able to like adapt, or they can afford, or they can survive in this particular low temperature, or are able to survive there. Now coming to the high temperature areas which are having, I mean, like the hotspots and all, which having 100 degrees Celsius and all, they'll be having some organisms like the regions were having higher temperature. They can, like the organisms, the bacteria which can survive the 100 degrees Celsius and all, are able to survive there, whereas humans are not able to survive in that climate. So this, the temperature do affect the survival of organisms. So physiological functions and the geographical distribution of organisms is governed by temperature. The physiological functions and the geographical distribution of organism is governed by the temperature. Understand? That means, as I mentioned, for example, humans, will we be able to survive in a polar region for a longer period of time? No. It is very difficult for us to survive in a polar region or in a minus 50, minus 100 degrees Celsius climate like that. We can't, because our body has been created, or our body are having enzymes or the molecules which can able to survive in a moderate climate. It is around 37 degrees Celsius, so which is around like the optimum value. So coming to a higher temperature than 100, like 100 degrees Celsius and all, we are not able to survive. So the function, because our body is able to do the proper metabolism at a particular temperature, which is around, just in between around 37 degrees Celsius. Okay, so and second is the geographical distribution. So the temperature, based on the temperature, the organisms are distributed geographically as well. We have the organisms which live in polar regions as well as in the higher temperature regions, the extreme areas, the extremophiles. Yeah. So temperature affects the kinetics of enzyme, what I mentioned right now. So for our metabolism, we need the enzymes, and enzymes need an optimum temperature to survive. Not survive, to be active, to catalyze in reaction. Next is the BMR, the basic metabolic rate, and other physiological actions in an organism. So in order to survive in an environment, the organism need the optimum temperature, optimum like the resources, food resources to survive. Now, on the basis of this temperature, organisms are classified into two categories, eurythermal and stenothermal. Eurythermal are the organisms which can tolerate a wide range of temperatures, and which include the humans, microorganisms, some extremophiles, some bacteria, microorganisms are also coming under this group, eurythermal. Now, stenothermal are the organisms which can tolerate narrow range of temperatures. For example, the polar fish, the organisms which can survive in Antarctica and all. So, and also some coral reefs, high altitude organisms, they are stenothermal. They can't survive in a wider range. They can either survive in the polar region or survive in the high temperature region. Okay. Now, the other two classification of organisms based on the temperature is ectotherms and endotherms. So, ectotherms are the organisms which are relying on external environmental sources of heat to regulate their body temperature, which includes reptiles, amphibians, fish, insect, etc. So, they are also known as cold-blooded animals. Now, coming to endotherms or warm-blooded animals, they are the organisms that regulate their body temperature internally, regardless of the external environmental temperature. And this include humans, the mammals, birds, etc. So, endotherms generate heat internally and maintain a constant body temperature. Ectotherms rely on external heat sources and have fluctuating body temperatures. Now, moving to the soil. Soil is formed by, we know, the breaking of rocks, which is called pedogenesis. And the nature and the properties of the soil depend on the climate and weathering process. So depend upon the climate, what climate the particular region is having and the type of weathering process happening, the soil will be having different physical and chemical properties. And these physical and chemical properties determine the type of plants that grow in a particular habitat. So the climate and weathering process determine the soil type, and the soil determine the type of plants which lives there, and the plants will be determining the animals which survive there. And moreover, the characteristics of the bottom sediments of the aquatic environment determine the type of benthic animals that can live there. Now, the third factor is light. So, light is a complex physical environmental factor. Light is an important abiotic factor because the autotrophs, that is plants, prepare its food by photosynthesis. So all we depend upon the ultimate source is the light, that is solar light energy from the sun, and it is absorbed, or like they are absorbed by the plant and converting this light energy into chemical energy. That is the organic molecules. For example, the glucose. So they fix this light energy and convert it into organic molecule, which is transferred to the next trophic levels. Like animals consume these plants for their energy purpose. So plants do photosynthesis to convert the light energy into chemical energy, which is consumed by the animals. As a result, they get the energy indirectly from the light. So small herbaceous plants and some shrubs live under the canopy forest trees, and they are adapted to photosynthesis under very low light intensities. That is sciophytes. Now animals use the seasonal variations in the light intensity and photo period as cues for timing of forage, reproduction and migration. So there are plants which need which only need very low intensity of light, and there are plants which need very high intensity of light. Like we do have short day plants and long day plants depend upon the intensity of light what they require. And even the animals depend on the seasonal variations in the light intensity and the photo period for the timing of reproduction, migration, forage, etc. The distribution of red, green, and brown algae at different depth of the water depends on the light, and the red algae can live in very deep water. So we have seen that like the phytoplankton, the plants beneath the water, have seen algae which are grown above the water. So they depend upon these kind of the species of algae, different kind of algae live in different depths, or different depths of water depend on the light actually. Red algae is a particular species which can live in very deep water because they doesn't need that much of light energy. Okay. Now third factor is the water. The important factor which influence the life of organism. The productivity and the distribution depends on the water. So as we mentioned, the photosynthesis, they require light, At the same time, they require water as well to carry out photosynthesis so that they can convert the light energy into chemical energy. Now, as we mentioned, this chemical energy is transmitted or consumed by the animals, and they then convert the chemical energy, the biomolecules, to, to ATP. And this also require water. So water is an important factor which influences the organisms. Now for aquatic organisms, the chemical composition, pH, salinity and the temperature of water are important because they are living in water. They have to know the constituents, the factors or the stability of water, like the consistency of water is also very important. Now, there are two kind of organisms, euryhaline and stenohaline. The organisms which can tolerate wide range of salinity are called euryhaline, and stenohaline are the organisms which can tolerate narrow range of salinity. That is stenohaline organisms. Now, moving to the response to abiotic factors. First is regulators. So, some organisms are able to maintain homeostasis. This is connected to, as we know, the endotherms or organisms. As we mentioned, they generate heat internally and maintain a constant body temperature. So these endotherms, which include the mammals, birds, they are able to regulate their body temperature internally, regardless of the external environmental temperatures. So endotherms can remain active even in cooler environments since they can maintain a constant body temperature, but they require more energy to fuel their metabolism to produce heat. So, so animals, like some organisms, are able to maintain the homeostasis by physiological means, which ensures the body temperature, constant osmotic concentration. Terms. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, birds and mammals consist, like they are included as the endotherms, as well as some very few lower vertebrates, and invertebrates are regulators. They can do thermoregulation, what I mentioned right now, and osmoregulation. So what is osmoregulation? As you know, in humans, we have the kidneys, and kidneys carry out the osmoregulation. They filter the blood to remove the waste and excess substances, including water and salts. So the kidney can adjust the volume and concentration of urine to maintain the proper balance of water and solutes. That is what osmoregulation refers to. And for example, as I mentioned, the human beings maintain their body temperature by sweating in summer and shivering during winter season. And plants do not have such mechanism to maintain the internal temperatures. Okay, that is about regulators. Moving to conformers. So, majority of the animals and nearly all plants cannot maintain a constant internal environment, as we refer to the ectoderms. Their body temperature changes with the ambient temperature. For example, in aquatic animals, the osmotic concentration of the body fluids change with that of the ambient water and osmotic concentration. So some species have evolved the ability to regulate, but only over a limited range of environmental conditions, beyond which they simply conform. So this is about the ectotherms, and thermoregulation is energy expensive process. So heat loss or gain is a function of surface area. So small animals are not found in polar region. So that means here we could say this particular category, the conformers, will be consisting of the organisms which can't regulate their body temperature. That is the ectoderms. They rely on external heat sources and they have fluctuations in the body temperature. Okay, moving to partial regulators. So they will be having the hairs on the body which act as heat insulators. In smaller organisms, the surface area is large as compared to the volume. And in larger animals, this ratio is small. So the larger animals effectively control the body temperature. So this is like about the partial regulators, like the organisms will be having certain adaptations to control the factors, like the effect of factors. For example, the hairs on the body and about the surface area into volume ratio, the surface area volume ratio. In larger animals, the surface area to volume is very low and the ratio is very small, and the larger animals, they can control the body temperature, because as the surface area increases, there will be like more evaporation happening, and yeah, they'll be like having, they can adapt to that situation. That means if it is higher temperature, they can control the temperature by sweating. More surface area in the sense more sweating will be there, and they can cool their body temperature for that period of time. Okay. Next is migration. The organisms can move away temporarily from the stressful habitat to a comfortable area and return when the stressful period is over. We usually have seen the birds migrating, other organisms, small rodents and all migrating to a better climate for a short period of time to overcome that stressful period. Next is suspension. The organisms that cannot migrate suspend their metabolic functions during stressful period. It is called suspension, like hibernation, aestivation, dispause, etc. So here you have the graph which shows the three type of organisms, that is the effects of how the abiotic factors are affecting the organisms. Based on that, we have three different group of organisms: the regulators, the conformers, and the partial regulators. So regulators, as I mentioned, they are able to survive the external conditions. So as the external conditions are growing, like changing, they are able to survive there. There is no any change in the internal level. Now coming to partial regulators, though some kind of external factors can affect them, but still because of some external like factor, because of some adaptations, they are able to survive. Whereas coming to conformers, as the external factors just go on, it changes the internal level of the organisms, that is conformers. Now we are moving to a term that is adaptation. We know the exact meaning, right? Adaptation. So adaptation is any changes of the organism. It could be morphological, physiological, and behavioral. And that enables it to survive and reproduce in its habitat. So adaptations have evolved over a long period of time and are genetically controlled. Let's take some example here. So considering the desert plants, they have thick cuticle on the leaf surface. They have sunken stomata, sorry, yeah, they have sunken stomata. They have the modified leaves as the spines, and they are carrying out CAM pathway, crassulation as a metabolism, where photosynthesis is happening and the stomata remain closed during the day. The examples include Opentia, cactus, etc. So these are the adaptations of desert plants to survive in an extreme climate. Okay, so these are the characters which they have, they got evolved over a long period of time. Now, now we are getting into the major topic, that is populations. So still now we were learning about the abiotic factors which affect the organisms. Now, population. We already discussed the definition is a group of individuals living in a particular geographical area, and they have certain attributes that an individual does not possess. So what are the characteristics of a population? It is population density. We can't say organism density. Organism is about a particular individual. Here population is about a group of organisms. So population density of a species is a number of individuals of a species per unit area or volume. So population density is equal to number of individuals in a region, that is n, divided by number of unit area in a region, that is S, that is population density. Next is birth rate and or natality rate. That is the rate of or the number of births per thousand individuals of a population per year. It is a number of births per thousand individuals of a population per year. That means if like 1,000 people are there in a population, and out of them how many of the individuals were born in a particular year, that is birth rate. Now coming to death rate, it is a number of deaths per 1,000 individuals of a population during a given period. Okay, and it is also known as mortality rate. Next is sex ratio. This is a number of females per 1,000 males of a population in a given time. Now is the age pyramid. So the population in any given time is composed of individuals of different age group. That is a pre-reproductive age group, reproductive and post-reproductive. Pre-reproductive consists of 0 to 14 years. Reproductive is 14 to 44 years and post-reproductive is 45 and above. Now, if the age distribution is plotted for the population, the resulting structure is called age pyramid. You could see the diagram over here. This is the age pyramid. That is, this three will be representing the post-reproductive age group, and the blue represents the reproductive age group, and the yellow represents the pre-reproductive age group. And here we have three kind of pyramid: expanding, stable, and declining. So let's get into it. So for human population, the age pyramid shows the age distribution of the males and females in a combined diagram. So that means in a single diagrams, in a single pyramid, they'll be showing the combination. That means the age group distribution of both males and females are shown in that diagram. So the shape of pyramids reflects the growth status of the population. That means whether it is an expanding or growing population, or a stable population, or a declining population. Here you could see the three types of pyramids: the expanding, the stable, and the declining one. This is the expanding or growing population. And this pyramid shows a stable population, and here this shows a declining population. Now, moving to population growth. So what is population growth? The increase in the population, the size, right? So we know that the size of population keeps increasing or like changing with the time. Not increasing exactly. It could be increasing or it could be decreasing. It will change exactly. So it depends upon various factors. That is, first one is food available. It is a food availability. So if in a particular habitat, if the organisms are having enough resources or food, they will be increasing in their number as well. In the same way, weather, like right now we were discussing about the effect of temperature, effect of light, water, and also if the weather is apt or like proper for an organism to survive in an environment, then the organism growth will be, the population growth will be happening. The predator pressure, if there is an organism which is consuming them, which if the organism is like acting like a prey, or there is a more population of the predator, the organism which consume it is more compared to the individual organism, then there will be a pressure. As a result, there will be decrease in the organism's population. And finally, competition. If there is another organism which is competing for the similar resource of the same individual organism, then it could also affect the population growth. Now, moving to the density of a population. So the density of a population can be changed, like can be affected by four basic factors. That is natality, that is the birth rate; mortality, that is the death rate; immigration and emigration. So we discussed about natality and mortality right now. Now, what is immigration and emigration? So immigration is a number of individuals of the same species that have come into the habitat from elsewhere during a given period. Okay. Now, we know, right, we are familiar with the terms. Like even humans do the immigration. Coming to emigration is the number of individuals of the population who have left the habitat and gone elsewhere during a given period of time. So immigration is like the habit, like some organisms have like transferred from their original habitat to the particular habitat under consideration. Okay, and it is explaining about the number of individuals of that same species. That is to be noted. It is about the number of individuals of the same species, not different. And coming to emigration, the individuals who have left the habitat. Now, so the natality and immigration contribute to increase in size and the density of a population. So natality in the sense the birth rate is increasing, and the immigration, if the organisms are moving to a particular habitat, coming towards a particular habitat, that means the population will increase. Whereas the mortality and immigration contribute to decrease in population. Isn't it? If there is a more death rate and people are moving from this particular habitat to other habitat, that means there will be decrease in population. So if n is the population density at time t, then the equation for population growth is nt, that means the population density at time t is equal to n0, that means the population in beginning, that is the initial population, plus in whole bracket we have B plus I, that is a birth rate plus immigration, minus death rate plus immigration. That means from the total of the people who have born at a particular year and people who have immigrated to that region, minus the people who undergone death and who had done immigration. That is the equation for population growth. So population growth or population density depend on natality, mortality, immigration and emigration. Now, we have two types of models in population growth, that is exponential growth model and logistic growth model. In exponential growth model, the equation is NT, that is population density after time t, is equal to the population density at time 0, that is N0, and E exponential to RT. That is the base of natural logarithm, that is into multiplied into e raised to rt, that is intrinsic rate of natural increase, that is r, and t refers to the time. Okay, and this particular growth curve will be showing a J-shaped curve here, J, not like capital J, a small j here, J-shaped curve, and this is unrestricted growth. That means here this this exponential growth will be showing a J-shaped curve, and here when the resources are not limiting the growth. That means here you can see that as the time passes, the population size is increasing. It means there are unlimited resources. So any species grow exponentially under unlimited resources and can reach enormous population density in a short time. But this is not so realistic, is it? Will the population will increase in a continuous or an exponential way in a short time like this? They will not be. That is what explains the logistic growth curve. That is a sigmoid curve. It is restricted growth. We will have some kind of barriers in the life cycle, isn't it? So here the equation is dn by dt is equal to rn, in bracket we have k minus n by k. So dn by dt is referring to the logistic, the logarithm of the change of population, the change in the population density at time t, and r is referring to the intrinsic rate of natural increase, and n is the population density, and k refers to the carrying capacity, minus n by k. Okay, so here it is showing a sigmoid curve. So when resources are limiting the growth, so resources for growth for most animal populations are finite and become limiting. So the logistic growth model is more realistic one, isn't it? You can see here, right, as the time passes, the population growth increases, but at a over a period of time, the rate slows down. Okay, that is what about the logistic growth curve. Now moving to the population interactions. So there are two types of interactions, interspecific interactions and intraspecific interactions. So interspecific interactions means if the interaction of population, if the interactions of population of two different species, that is interspecific. Population 1 and population 2 interacting with each other. Now, intraspecific is the interaction of individuals of the same species. That means in a population, the species 1 and species 2 is interacting with each other. Okay. Now, different types of interactions include predation, competition, parasitism, commensalism, amensalism, and mutualism. So what is predation? One organism consuming another. There is interaction between species involving killing and consumption of prey. The predator will be consuming the prey. Predator is the species which eat the other, and the one consumed is the prey. So predator always keeps check on the prey population. The reduction in the predator population may lead to the increase in the prey population, isn't it? If the predator is increasing, that means the prey will decrease. They are indirectly proportional. Okay. Moving to the next one, that is competition. So competition is an interaction among the individuals of same species or between the individuals of different species. It means it could be intraspecific or interspecific. They are competing for the same resources. They are competing for the same resources that are limited. So in some cases, the resources need not be limiting for competition to occur, but the feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to the interference of the other species. For example, if there are two organisms A and B and they are competing for the same resource R, and if A are more competent or they are having more features to overcome the B and able to carry out like they to consume more R or like consume the more resources, that means the population at A will be increasing gradually. Now, moving to the next is the parasitism. So here the parasitism is an interspecific interaction where one species depend on the other species for food and shelter. So hosts get harmed and the parasites get benefited. So parasites are host specific and the parasite means like the parasites will be living on a particular organism for food and shelter. But that means they are host specific, and parasite and this host tend to be co-evolving. Co-evolving means if the host evolves a special mechanism to reject or resist the parasite has to evolve the mechanism to neutralize them. So parasitism involves shelter in addition to food obtained by a parasite. And parasites may be ectoparasites or endoparasites. So ectoparasites live on the surface of their host, while endoparasites live inside the body of the host. It's like the microorganisms living inside our body. That is endoparasitism. Now coming to some kind of organisms which are living on the surface of plant and all, that is ectoparasitism. Okay, now moving to the next one, that is commensalism. So this is an interspecific interaction in which one species benefits and the other is neither harmed nor benefited. For example, the orchids growing on a tree branch. So orchids are benefited, the trees are neither benefited nor harmed. The barnacles growing on the back of whales. This is also an example for commensalism. Now, moving to mutualism. So mutualism is the interspecific interaction in which both the species interact and gets benefited. Both are benefited. For example, the lichens, mycorrhiza. So lichens are the relationship between fungus and algae or cyanobacteria where both are benefited. Now, mycorrhiza, association of fungus with the roots of higher plants. So fungi helps to absorb the nutrients from the rocks and plants provide energy yielding carbohydrates to fungi. Now, next is amensalism. It is an interspecific interaction in which one is harmed and the other is neither benefited nor harmed. It is penicillium, which is secreting penicillin and it kills the bacteria. Now here the penicillium is not even harmed or benefited, but one organism is harmed, that is the bacteria. Now we'll conclude it with the summary diagram here. Predation, one species is benefited and other is harmed. Now competition, both the organisms are harmed because one will be competing for the same resource. Either anyone could be like benefited or anyone could be harmed. Parasitism, one will be benefited and other will be harmed. Commensalism, one will be benefited, other will not be harmed nor benefited. Amensalism, one will be harmed and the other will not be benefited, neither benefited nor harmed. Mutualism, both the organisms will be benefited. Now, moving to the past paper questions of NEET exam. This is from May 2017. And here the question is, Alexander von Humboldt described for the first time what? The answer is option B, species area relationships. So Alexander von Humboldt described the species area relationship, demonstrating that within a habitat, species richness increases with the increasing area, but only up to a certain limit. This is a fundamental concept in ecology. Now, moving to next question, mycorrhizae are example of what? Just now we discussed it. The answer is option C, mutualism, where both organisms are benefited. So here, as we discussed right now, the fungi lives on the plant roots. And here the fungi will be helping the plants to absorb nutrients like phosphorus. And the plants provide fungi with carbohydrates, the energy source. So option C is the correct answer. Now, next question is from May 2019. The pinus seed cannot germinate and establish without fungal association. Now, what is this called? So this is again related to the mutualism. So just now we discussed about the mycorrhizae, where the fungus is associated with the plant roots and the fungi will be providing the help to absorb the nutrients, and the plants will be providing the fungi with carbohydrates. So the mycorrhizae is the association in pinus seed germination. It is a symbiotic relationship. Okay, so option B is the correct answer. It has an obligate association with mycorrhizae. It is a fungi and the plant's root play a key role in nutrient acquisition and plant growth. In case of the spinous, that is pine trees, the mycorrhizal association is essential for seed germination and subsequent growth. So here the mycorrhizal association benefits spinous seeds germination. So the correct answer is option B. Now this question is from June 2024, and here you have to match the list 1 and 2. First we have predator. So here we can connect predator with Pisaster. So Pisaster is a genus of starfish that is a well-known keystone predator, controlling the population of other species in its ecosystem. So this will be A. Now next is mutualism. So an example for mutualism will be the female wasp and fig, because the relationship with the female wasp and fig trees is an example for mutualism where both species benefit from each other. Now third is parasitism. Here it will be matching with Plasmodium, isn't it? Plasmodium is a parasite that causes malaria in humans. And it is an example for parasitism where the parasite benefits at the expense of the host. So this will be C. Now D is sexual deceit. So this will be connected to Ophrys, that is D here. Ophrys is a genus of orchids that uses sexual deceit to attract pollinators by mimicking the appearance and scent of female insects. So the correct answer is option D. Now moving to the next question. When does the growth rate of a population following the logistic model equals 0? The logistic model given as dn by dt is equal to Rn into 1 minus n by k. So here the answer will be option A, when n by k is exactly 1. We know that in logistic growth curve, the growth rate becomes 0 when the population size reaches the carrying capacity. That means n is equal to k. So here, if n by k, that means n is equal to k, that means n by k is equal to 1, isn't it? So option A is the correct answer because both are equal. Now, the principle of competitive exclusion was stated by whom? The answer is option D, GF's Gauss. That is, we have learned about the Gauss principle of competitive exclusion. So in the light of evidence, we claim that if two or more species live in a stable association, they must possess different ecological niches. So according to Gauss law, it states that two species competing for the same limited resources cannot coexist indefinitely. So the answer is option D, GF Gauss. Now, which one of the following plants show a very close relationship with a species of a moth where none of the two can complete its life cycle without each other? That means they both need each other for their survival together. This question is from May 2018. The answer is option B, yucca, because yucca plants have an obligate mutualistic relationship with the moth species, that is Proluba, commonly referred to as the yucca moth. And in this relationship, the yucca plant depend on the moth for pollination. And the yucca moth relies on the yucca plant to lay its egg. That means they are both benefited together. So the larvae feed on some of the developing seeds of the yucca, but inner seeds remain to allow the yucca plant to reproduce. And neither the yucca plant nor the moth can complete its life cycle without the other. So it is an example for mutualism. Now, natality refers to what? It is the birth rate, right? So natality refers to the birth rate, which is the number of new individuals born in a population per unit time. So option B is the correct answer. Now next question is from May 2023. The Gauss competitive exclusion principle. It states that two closely related species competing for the same resources cannot coexist indefinitely and competitively inferior one will be the eliminated one eventually. This is true, isn't it? This first statement is correct. Just now we explained it. Now moving to the second statement, in general, the carnivores are more adversely affected by competition than herbivores. This is absolutely incorrect. We know that the herbivores feed on plants and they are generally more adversely affected by the competition than carnivores. So the answer will be option D. Statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is false. So in this question, you have been given two columns where in one column you have mutualism, commensalism, amensalism and parasitism. So coming to mutualism, we know that both the species are benefited. Okay, so both interacting species are benefited, whereas coming to commensalism, here it benefits one species and does not affect the other, similar to the barnacles in the whale's body. And coming to amensalism, it harms one species while leaving the other unaffected. And parasitism benefits one species while harming the other. So mutualism, it be connected here plus and plus, and commensalism, one species benefited and one is not affected. So that means it will be like B here. Now amensalism, harm one species and leaving the other unaffected. Now finally parasitism, one is benefited while the other is harmed, that is D. So here A, like the correct answer is 4, 1, D, that is 2 and 3. 4, 1, 2 and 3, that is option C is the correct answer. Moving to the next question from May 2023. Here you have logistic growth, exponential growth, expanding age pyramid and stage age pyramid over here. And you have to match the following here. So logistic growth occurs when a population expands in a habitat with limited resources. So here it is like limited resources availability condition A. Now moving to exponential growth curve, this occurs when a species grows rapidly under unlimited resource condition. So this is B. Next is expanding age pyramid. this have a larger percentage of individuals in pre-reproductive age group compared to the reproductive and post-reproductive age group. So here the percentage of individuals of pre-reproductive age group is higher. That is, this is C. Now stable age pyramid have similar percentage of individuals in the pre-reproductive and reproductive age group. So here they are, the percentage individuals of both the groups are same, that is D. So first is 2, then 1, then 3 and then 4. So option B is the correct answer. Moving to the next question. From September 2020, the process of growth is maximum during which among the following phase? The answer is the log phase or the exponential phase. Option C is the correct answer. So exponential growth refers to a pattern growth where a population size increases at a constant rate per unit time, resulting in a J-shaped curve when plotted over time. And initially during the lag phase, the growth is very slow as the population acclimates to its environment and resources. Now, once the conditions become favorable, the population enters the exponential phase where the growth accelerates dramatically. And this rapid growth occurs because each individual in the population is capable of reproducing at the maximum possible rate, leading to an exponential increase in the population size. So here we could identify option C is the correct answer, that is log phase or the exponential phase with maximum growth. Next question is from May 2024. In this question, you have been given the equation of logistic growth curve and you have to find out what K indicates. K is the carrying capacity. So carrying capacity is the maximum population size of a species that the environment can sustainably support given the availability of resources like food, water and shelter. That is the K, that is the carrying capacity. So option A is the correct answer. This question is from June 2024. When will the population density increase under special conditions? So we know that when the birth rate increases and immigration, the immigrants increases, the population density also increases. So birth plus number of immigrants is more than the sum of number of deaths and number of immigrants will be the correct answer, isn't it? So if B plus I is higher than D plus I, then they will be getting a positive number. So as a result, what will happen? And the population growth will be, the population density will be increasing. So the answer is option D. So let's wind up the class today. Hope you have understood the class. Thank you.